I begin this video like I usually don't begin my videos by quoting the Russian Ministry of Defense or Sergei Shoigu, the Russian Defense Minister. Yesterday he claims that they shot down 2 ATACMS. ATACMS, not ATACMS. I'm trying to fix my pronunciation on these weapons. Shoigu claims the Russian air defense S-400 shot down 2 missiles. Onlookers say that these missiles hit the target directly and there were huge explosions, and then Russian telegram channels were filled with chatter claiming that these 2 ATACMS destroyed Russian S-400 missile systems. To which Shoigu remained certain of himself, saying that no, they destroyed the ATACMS in mid-air. To which the Russian telegram channels, and I will read you the report, it looks pretty funny, reacted like this. Yesterday, the Ministry of Defense reported the downing of 2 ATACMS. The source ironically described the reality. It is exactly like that. 2 ATACMS missiles were destroyed as a result of a direct hit on the position of an air defense group of the Russian armed forces in the Lugansk region, and the cost of 3 S-400s. So Shoigu was right. The Russian army did destroy 2 ATACMS missiles with their air defense systems through direct impact on the ground. They took those missiles out. Well, that's one way to destroy ATACMS, but it's a very expensive way. See, the S-400 is not like the S-300, which Russia has an abundance of, well, not abundance, but enough to throw them left and right. S-400s are very rare and very expensive. They were commissioned into the Russian air defense units only in 2007, so they are the newest, most modernized and most expensive Russian air defense systems. And Russia doesn't have that many of them. Now, the longest missiles on S-400s have the range of 380 kilometers, which is 240 miles. But now the fact that I'm trying to get to is the countries that wanted to buy these systems before the war in Ukraine began. And these countries include Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, Iraq, Qatar, even the United States actually, and Serbia. The thing is, this war has been a catastrophe for a Russian weapons export because there is enough footage to see how Russian weapons and weapon systems are performing in Ukraine, namely the S-300 and S-400. Now, my friends, we will go to Sevastopol because there is something anomalytic happened. Well, let me read it to you. Russian Project 23040G, reconnaissance hydrographic anti-mine ship Vladimir Kazynsky has blown up in Sevastopol. Was it a Ukrainian attack? Well, actually, no, it wasn't. It did blow up, but Ukrainians weren't involved. According to witnesses, the ship suddenly blew up on the outer roadstead of Sevastopol Bay, where it had been slowly running circles for the past few days. This ship is designed to locate sea mines and defuse them. A very necessary ship. And it's also one of the newer ones, where most of the Russian fleet is actually old and from the Soviet times and falling apart. This one wasn't. This one was actually commissioned to the Russian Navy in 2018. Fairly new ship, modernized ship, and now it's a submarine, joining Moscow. Onlookers said that it was making circles for a few days, meaning its steering system probably was faulty, broken, could not be fixed. Then smoke started coming from the engine room and from the ship, and then the explosion happened. So we don't exactly know what happened, but we know it wasn't the Ukrainians. Maybe it located some mines so close to Sevastopol they must have been Russian mines. Perhaps it hit a mine, which damaged its steering system, which made it go in circles, and then kaboom! It was sent to sleep with the fishes, knocked out cold, turned into a submarine. Russian submarine fleet is expanding weirdly. I will read you the description of large hydrographic boat Vladimir Kazynsky. Project 23040G hydrographic boat is designed in accordance with the technical requirements of the Navy High Command and is intended for surveying the bottom and examining navigational hazards at depths up to 400 meters, as well as for surveying the relief with single beam echo depth sounder at depths up to 2,000 meters. I'm sure you understood all of it because I didn't. Well, this ship now doesn't need to survey the depths of 2,000 meters. It is at the depths of 2,000 meters because it's a damn submarine now. Okay, let's read the comments. What do you think about my latest videos? Something's wrong with your hair, dude. Okay, let's move on. You forgot a small detail, your hair. I'm afraid you've lost it. Where did you last see it? My friends, what? Okay, there has to be some nicer comments. My wife doesn't like your hair tonight. She thinks you're very handsome. Oh, thank you. But this new haircut and style is killing you, machismo. What? She loves your videos. Oh yeah, me too. What? Okay, next one is good. What's that haircut, dude? What? It's not that bad. Arthur, I like you a lot. Yeah! But what is that haircut? Come on, guys, come on. There has to be something. What are you doing with your hair? Arthur, what were you thinking when you got that current haircut? What the hell is going on with your hair? My dudes, I'm going bald. Look at me. Look, I'm going bald. What do I do? I don't know what to do. It's, I put it like that. I put it like, it's... Go ahead, get it out of your system. My hair, I will do it for you. Arthur, your hairline is retreating faster than the Russians from Izium. Okay, I'll put it back. My friends, I get a kick out of it. Keep them coming. Now, my friends, let's go to my latest campaign on the kamikaze drones that we are going to give to the best Ukrainian Special Forces units. 57,000 euros out of 53,000. You guys have done it. We have reached the goal. Yes! We will give 30 kamikaze drones and 1 pickup truck to the best Ukrainian Special Forces unit. You have directly changed the outcome of this war, and in November or December, you will get a video of me directly handing these drones over. No middlemen. Thank you, my friends. Also, if you want more footage of me going to Ukraine next month, check out my Instagram. Link is in the description below. I'll post everything immediately there. My friends, now I will read you an up-to-date analysis of the situation of Avdiivka, and it is pretty realistic. And before I start, I want to say that yes, Ukrainian forces are in a very difficult situation in Avdiivka. Russians are taking an insane amount of losses offensing Ukrainian fortifications, but Ukrainian fortress of Avdiivka is in the threat of being surrounded. Let's read the report. And it comes from Ukrainian military generalist Yuri Batusov. On October 25th, Russian command continued assault operations along the entire perimeter of Avdiivka's defense, and along a narrow corridor from the village of Krasnokharivka to the north of the city. Russian infantrymen were attacked with all types of weapons, and the enemy was clearly visible. The Russians rotated and replaced the assault units that were destroyed and threw reserves into the battle. The 110th Mechanized Brigade successfully repelled all attacks directly on Avdiivka. And now we get to the truth of it. However, the situation north of Avdiivka has seriously escalated. Despite heavy losses, Russian assault units north of Avdiivka advanced along the railroad tracks and occupied an area up to 1 kilometer wide, trying to expand the controlled corridor and create conditions for concentrating forces and further offensive in the direction of Stepove, Berdichi, and towards the industrial zone of the Avdiivka coke and chemical plant. This is a very serious threat that requires maximum attention. The enemy expects to gain a foothold in the factory building and gain a bridgehead to enter the city. Southern to Avdiivka, Russian troops continue their attacks to seize a sand quarry near the village of Opitne. Avdiivka is of much greater strategic importance to Ukraine than even Bakhmut. The Russian command wants to show success here at any cost. The tactical situation here is very favorable for the destruction of Russian strike forces. Now that's a very important sentence. The quickest and most efficient way for Ukrainians to degrade the Russian offensive capabilities is not to attack the Russians, but to choose the best defensive locations and force Russians to attack them. This is Avdiivka. Avdiivka is, compared to some other Ukrainian fortifications, easier to defend with lesser amount of men than other areas. And it requires the enemy to take heavy losses charging it. And that's exactly what Ukraine has done. Russians are striking them like in Bakhmut, in an area that is very easy to defend. I'm not saying the situation is easy. I'm saying that Ukrainians have great overlooking fortification positions in and around Avdiivka, like they did in Bakhmut. Yes, the Ukrainians lost Bakhmut in the end, but to the Russians it cost about 30 to 40,000 KIA troops. That is the Ukrainian goal. See, you cannot attack the Russian positions if Russians have enough reserves, enough weaponry and enough armored vehicles and enough artillery. How to take these things away from the Russians? You force the Russians to attack your fortified positions. That is the phase Ukrainians are in now. They are defending, degrading Russian offensive capabilities day by day. Russians are taking insane losses. And only after then, when attacking the Russian positions don't translate to huge Ukrainian losses anymore due to the fact that Russians don't have the lines manned, Ukrainians will attack. In my eyes, this defensive strategy is genius, brilliant, and the only way Ukrainians could fight to a greater enemy. But of course, I have many comments saying that Ukrainians are losing and they lost Bakhmut and they will lose Avdiivka. Yes, my friends, Ukrainians might lose Avdiivka, but Russians will lose 30 to 40,000 KIAs taking that city, and then Ukraine can take it back, if necessary, with much less losses. It is not about gaining ground or holding ground in any cost. It is about preserving your army. That is always the case in any war. Look at Napoleon in Moscow, look at Hitler in Russia. They gained ground fast, but they lost it later fast because they lost their offensive and defensive capabilities by throwing their troops away. This is what Ukraine is not doing, and this means they have to sometimes give up ground, give up cities. Ukrainian generals know this. This is why, in my eyes, this strategy makes sense, and the ground Ukraine loses is not to be viewed as a loss, but to be viewed as a high price for Russians to be paid. But our advantages must be realized in full. It is not a number of people in uniform or the number of different units and flags on the map that should stop the Russian infantry, but well-organized, coordinated and controlled fresh units. And all such reserves are needed here to destroy the Russians in the narrow corridor they are fighting in. The situation in Avdiivka is escalating, and there is a battle going on here in which the enemy is throwing its main forces, a battle that we have every opportunity to win with the necessary concentration of our forces. I like this report because it highlights the danger that Ukrainians are in, and it highlights the necessity of coordinating Ukrainian defense. I always report on the huge losses that the Russians are taking, but in this video I want to emphasize that the situation is difficult and dangerous for the Ukrainians in Avdiivka, but that is the goal. If Ukrainians would pull out of Avdiivka, they would not be able to inflict insane losses on the attacking Russian infantry. Now I will read you a very short summary of the Institute from the Study of Wars yesterday's report on Avdiivka. Failures near Avdiivka will create a long-term problems for Russian offensive. The Russian command will likely struggle to offset the Russian equipment losses, particularly in armored vehicles. Now we go to the Ukrainian military analyst Alexander Kovalenko, and I will not read you the whole thing. In this I will summarize. He is describing how he has been observing how Russians are pushing huge amount of reserves from Kupiansk area to Avdiivka, meaning that their previous offensive from Kupiansk has totally failed and Russians now are taking these forces to Avdiivka. But I like the ending of his report. On the other hand, they are not just pulling a rather motley biomass along Avdiivka from other bridgeheads. New waves of offensives are expected in the near future, although they will have their own nuance, namely the lack of necessary technical component. That is, according to the standard of configuration of the attacking units, what we will see in the near future in Avdiivka area will no longer be similar to what we saw on October 10th. Marching battalions will mainly go on the offensive, meaning there will not be armored convoys because there are not enough armor for that, but they will still continue sending insane amount of biomass. This, in a certain sense, simplifies the process of defeating manpower. On the other hand, the Russian command switched to the tactics of storming Bakhmut, which began to be used on the 4th month of the offensive of the city. In fact, on the 3rd week of the offensive of Avdiivka. Now, this is the most important paragraph here. Russians have been attacking Avdiivka for the 3rd week now, and they're already switching to mass infantry assaults, a step they did with Bakhmut 4 months into the offensive. Meaning that Russians are more and more choosing mass infantry assaults over armored attacks. In Bakhmut it took 4 months, in Avdiivka it took 3 weeks. In the next settlement they strike it might be chosen immediately. This shows us the lack of armor. Russians are lacking armor because in no army in the world you would choose mass infantry assaults if you would have armor. Secondly, mass infantry assaults are very much preferred for the defending Ukrainian side because they're much more easier to defeat and they produce heavy, insanely large losses for the attacking side. Also, the taking of Bakhmut is what the pro-Russian commentators in my channel always say is the sign that Ukraine is losing. Bakhmut cost 40,000 KIAs for the Russian, for the Wagners. And you know what else? It directly led to Wagner mutiny, who almost marched to Moscow. Now we all know how that ended up. That was only the beginning. Now Russia is doing another such operation on a similar, if not larger scale, which means it can lead to more mutinies, more infighting. So it is not only the tactics that they use to gain ground, but the outcomes of these tactics in Russian internal systems, in the army, we don't know what it will produce, but it will not be good for Russia. Now we will hop out the Ukrainian war for a moment because the United States has struck back. Senior United States defense officials have stated that the two airstrikes tonight in eastern Syria near the city of Al-Bukamal were conducted by two American F-16 Fighting Falcons of the United States Air Force. They targeted weapons, storages and ammunition facilities, both used by Iranian-backed militia groups. Now this is an answer to the striking of United States bases 1.5 weeks ago. Now this is a very soft strike knowing United States capabilities, but it sends a message. Carry on this path and we will wipe you from the earth. That's the message the two F-16s gave. Now we will see if Iranian-backed militant groups will continue striking United States bases in the Middle East. I will keep you updated on that shortly. My friends, and now the best part of the video. It is Friday, so the last time this week I get to enjoy butchering of the Patreon names. Tier 10 and above, and I'll be calling out your name in a weird pronunciation. Gabriel Tudor Stan, Martin Baum. Martin, you became a big Patreon. Thank you, a big thank you. Kathi Karret. CF TS Inimbus. Thank you. Why the hell? What is that name? But thank you, my friends. Also, thank you for finishing the fundraiser. We have 57k, which we will use to buy these drones and the truck. And you will see it on my channel or on my Instagram. Until my next update, my friends. Slava Ukraini and bye-bye.